One of Elizabeth Bishop's personal trademark stylistic techniques is the precise description of concrete objects and places throughout her poetry. While many poets incorporate images of abstract ideas, Bishop recreates places and things in her work, then takes us to a world both of and beyond them. This is certainly true in At the Fishhouses. Throughout her poem, she illustrates with angular felt, imposing detail the place of the narrative. The 5 fish houses have steeply peaked roofs and narrow cleated gangplanks slant up to storerooms in the gables for the wheelbarrows to be pushed up and down on. Yet the poem somehow penetrates the newly created myth of this darkly animated place and arrives at her less accessible but higher poetics. Here she seems to be able, like a metaphysical scientist, to discover knowledge as an organic and insensitive fundamental literally underlying the scene. It is like what we imagine knowledge to be: dark, salt, clear, moving, utterly free, drawn from the cold, hard mouth of the world, derived from the rocky breasts, forever flowing and drawn, and since our knowledge is historical, flowing and flown. Somehow she has taken us from the cleated gangplanks to a speculative breakdown of knowledge as something both conceptual but also as a part of the earth and something uncaring.
While the aspect of objects in place are particularly vivid in At the Fishhouses, they are also evident in Little Exercise, Late Air, and One Art. In Little Exercise, for example, her descriptions of the mangroves, boulevards, and the isolated man are clear and real, but she animates these images by personifying them or juxtaposing them with other disquieting images, and produces a sense of subtle menace and lassitude. Think of the boulevard and the little palm trees all stuck in rows, suddenly revealed as fistfuls of limp fish skeletons. Late Air also resonates beyond its literal descriptions with its remote red lights sitting untouched and above the dew-wet lawns. And in One Art, simple objects are disposed of, but cry silently of the inevitability of loss. Bishop routinely begins in the things of this world, then uncovers ghosts and suggestive spirits that speak beyond the objects and the words. Another common element found within Bishop's poems is a theme of loneliness, often stemming from the illusion of truth humans experience in life. With the combination of the references to magic and fortune-telling in Late Air, and the contrast between the silver surface of the sea with the cold, dark, deep, and absolutely clear aspect of the sea in At the Fishhouses, Bishop alludes to the fact that the truth seems to be so clear and near, but there is so much more to it that is unknown or deep and dark. The presence of the illusion of truth separates the speakers in the poems from the situation, creating a sense of isolation and loneliness.
The speaker in Bishop's poems, then, is important since it both informs, presents the picture and tells the story of the poem, and, at the same time, fosters feelings of remoteness and some mystery. At the Fishhouses is clearly presented by a person, but she is so dedicated to depicting the scene, the resulting feeling is of an almost inhuman sense of detail, as though the speaker might otherwise be lost, dissolve, or disappear. Although it is a cold evening, down by one of the fish houses an old man sits netting, his net, in the gloaming almost invisible, a dark purple-brown, and his shuttle worn and polished. One wonders if the speaker is fearful of falling off the earth if they are unable to unequivocally secure where they are. In At the Fish Houses, the speaker even enters the poem, for a part, as a participant, but still remains remote and undefined. The speaker in the poems Little Exercise and Late Air are equally important and almost as mysterious or translucent as in the Fish Houses. In Little Exercise, the speaker never appears in the poem, but describes evocative scenes with a disturbing sense of detachment. Here, the speaker is repetitively suggesting with no arrived-at conclusion. Think of the storm roaming the sky. Think how they must look now. Think of the boulevard. Think of some sleeping. Think of him as uninjured, barely disturbed. In Late Air, the speaker does appear. The speaker in the first short stanza describes a suggestively prurient scene. From a magician's midnight sleeve, the radio singers distribute all their love songs over the dew-wet lawns. In the second stanza, the speaker enters, but to declare she is removed from the scene in the first stanza. The speaker states with controlled emotion, "But on the Navy Yard aerial I find better witnesses for love on summer nights. 5 remote red lights keep their nests there, phoenixes burning quietly where the dew cannot climb." In all of these poems, there is emotion and intent unspoken, vibrating beneath the speaker's words.
The speaker in one art should be considered and treated, to some degree, differently than in these other poems. Written later in life and in the naturally more emotional, song-like form of a villanelle, the speaker in one art, though restrained, is more open and visible. The tone of the poem is conversational. We are being spoken to. We are being taught a lesson from the benefit of the experience of the speaker. Her lesson is on mastering the art of losing, about which she is an expert. She, the speaker, stands in front of us and instructs. The art of losing isn't hard to master. So many things seem filled with the intent to be lost that their loss is no disaster. She takes us through steps to master the process, then begins to share personal examples until she arrives at the emotional peak and pain of the poem. Even losing you, the joking voice, a gesture I love, I shan't have lied. It's evident the art of losing's not too hard to master, though it may look like, write it, like disaster. At the end of one art, the person is there and hurting. She is not hidden in remoteness or mystery, unlike the previously discussed poems. Elizabeth Bishop anchored her poems in the real world and, using the poet's alchemy, took her work to places that resonated powerfully but did not answer questions, perhaps not even certain what the questions were.